Hey, what's up, guys? It's Dave, the host of the Military Millionaire podcast, and today we have an exciting episode with Jenny Villalobos and her husband, who's not actually here. He's doing army things, running around, but they run Live In Flip, and so we're going to talk about the VA renovation loan from people who help others use it, as well as the idea of live in flip, which is a great strategy because you're building equity in in a property. You're getting to live in a nice home. You're not paying capital gains tax when you move out. Up to 15 years later, depending on military status and a couple things we'll touch on. There's a huge loophole there for capital gains tax. Definitely stay tuned. And just a bunch of other pointers. This is basically the military version of HGTV. So it sounds fun. It looks fun and it's gonna be a good time. So stay tuned and enjoy the show. Oh, and as always, show notes are found at FromMilitaryToMillionaire.com/podcast. Now relax and enjoy the show.
You're listening to the Military Millionaire Podcast, a show about real estate investing for the working class. Stay tuned as we explore ways to help you improve your finances, build wealth through real estate, and become a person that is worth knowing.
Hey guys, I hope that you had a very successful 2019, but I would like to take a moment and say, yes, we've all set those pesky New Year's resolutions before, but we've also all, I would be willing to bet, failed at least some, if not a majority or all, of our New Year's resolutions. So I would like to take a moment and invite you to come join the War Room Mastermind Group, which is a group of service members and veterans only that is designed for real estate investors and entrepreneurs who want to take the next step. So this is for people who want to grow. This is for people who want the accountability. This is a mindset mastermind, but we're also going to have different professions come in and speak to you. So already we've had a phenomenal naval motivator come in who's spoken at Google, and he's come in and talked about mindset and making things happen. We've had a CPA, my CPA, come in and talk about taxes, and that's huge, especially this time of year. We're bringing in marketing people, we're bringing in sales people. This is geared towards helping you become the most successful investor you can, but also the best person that you can and design your life. We've got 25, probably by the time you hear this, 30 people in the group, and we do a monthly call, we do a weekly call. It's just an awesome opportunity. For more information, shoot an email to wrmastermind@gmail.com and we will hook you up with all the info. There is no reason not to at least look into it so that maybe, just maybe, this year you might actually accomplish some of your goals. Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/militarymillionaire. Now, why Audible? Audible content includes an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original audio shows, news, comedy, and more from the leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, and entertainers. I listen to Audible every single day on my commute to and from work. Now, to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/militarymillionaire. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Dave with Military to Millionaire, and I am here with Jenny Villalobos, who is one half of the Live In Flip team. Her husband, Chris, is off doing army things, so he could not be with us this morning. But we are still going to talk about real estate and all of the other fun stuff that goes into living as a military real estate investor. Jenny, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this has been fun. We've been going back and forth trying to find dates for a little while, both too busy for our own.
Yeah, for a hot minute.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and what you guys do?
Yeah, of course. So Chris and I started Live and Flip. We started it, well, I guess just start the premise of what it is. Basically, we do two things. So the first line of what we do is we help military families find homes with equity that they can use the VA renovation loan and actually live in, flip it, and then when they end up PCSing again, now they can actually make money. So the whole premise is that, PCSing and having to move all over the country does create financial hardships. It just does. And we realize that real estate is one of the ways that we can actually help address those financial hardships for military families. And then the other half of what we do is we actually flip here. We're in the Bragg area, so the Fayetteville area. We flip ourselves, and then we flip for active duty military investors who may want the returns of flipping, but not necessarily actually get into all the dirty stuff themselves.
That's cool. How did you guys get into this? How did that start?
Yeah. So when we first moved down here, we had a house that we intentionally got a house that we knew we could rent because we wanted that extra income, and we had partially flipped it because we bought it as a semi flip, and then we added to it, and realized when we rented it we ended up renting it for 500 over what the actual mortgage was. And from there we found another foreclosure in a what's considered like one of the actual nicest neighborhoods in Fayetteville. It's a house that a neighborhood you wouldn't expect to actually find a foreclosure. And we went into it with 60,000 in equity. And then by the time we finish fixing it and we sell it, we're going to make around 100 grand on this house. So based on that, we had friends and other military colleagues, et cetera, who are always asking us, well, how did you do that? How can you do that? What, can you help us fix this? I need advice with how to do this, et cetera. And looking around as a military spouse myself, when I came down here, and I'm not alone, I'm highly educated. So, and I say that not as a bragging way, but because I have my law degree, and I actually have a master's degree as well. And I came down here, and it took me about a year before I could find a job, before I could find work. As educated as I was, not just educated, but like actual experience. So me transitioning into the work field was extremely hard. And I had other military spouses who found the same thing. So there was, for instance, I had one friend who had her degree, I think, in engineering. She actually had an engineering degree, and she was working at a smoothie shop. And then I had another friend who had her master's in nutrition, and she's selling pipes. So the reality is that when you PCS, yes, there are a lot of things that come with it that's really cool and really awesome. But the thing that you can't change is the job market for a spouse. And military spouses are 33% lower rate or higher rate of unemployment than even your regular civilian work field. So this was kind of a way for us to help ourselves personally with our finances, and we realized it was something that other people could do too. And I guess just over time, when we had so many people coming to us and we would give advice, and they would come into our house and see what we were doing, and it just grew into one day we were like, we could turn this into a thing. Like, this could actually be a thing over the course of time, and Live and Flip just grew to be what it is now.
Yeah, that's very true. In fact, I just started writing as you were talking that I need to do an article about like best jobs for military spouses, because it's terrible, but it's almost funny that being overeducated is like a curse. Like a lot of the jobs that like my wife had more issues than she should have, but it wasn't too hard to be employed as in the school system, because like she has a degree and there's school jobs everywhere. But for a specific high paying job, like in the law field, right? Like that's not something that opens up all the time, and you're not local. They know you're not gonna be around forever. There's some definite hardships to go there, but I like how that kind of transpired into this other endeavor.
Yep. And what's funny is, when I was looking for a job, I'd actually made 2 separate resumes. I'd actually taken off like my law stuff, my legal stuff, because I had a career before going to law school where I was just human resources. And I thought, oh, for sure, if I take off that and just do, human resources at Macy's, I'm bound to find a job. But I was turned down from like Hobby Lobby. I couldn't even get a job at Target, like all these things, because the competition here was so high with other spouses, but not just other spouses, with the local community. Most of the jobs here are actually taken by the local community. So that's exactly what spurred the reality is, why not take one of the biggest hardships that the military has to endure, which is the whole PCS aspect of it, and turn that into your biggest potential for income, because that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. If done correctly, it's wonderful. So you mentioned the VA renovation loan earlier.
Yeah.
Have you utilized that yet?
Yeah, so we personally are not using that because we're in our own Live and Flip, but our team, we actually have a mortgage guy on our team. So he does the VA renovation loans for the clients that are moving down here. So as of right now, we have a couple of clients who have used it, and it's up to, for them, our mortgage guide goes up to 50,000 just because it's the area here. But one is capped out at 30 and one is capped out at 40. And that's where they're sitting in their flip now. And when they PCS and when they move after everything's paid back, one will make $15,000 when they move and the other is going to make $28,000 when they move.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the renovation loan. I haven't, same thing. Haven't gotten to use it myself yet, mainly because I've been stationed in Hawaii and now San Diego. And neither market I felt was necessarily the right venture. But it's amazing to me how many people don't even know the renovation loan exists. I love that program.
Well, exactly. That's unfortunately, I feel like the VA hasn't done a really good job of advertising it. But honestly, the VA renovation loan is fairly new in retrospect to, a VA mortgage.
Yeah,
everybody knows about the VA mortgage.
2 or 3 years, I think, right?
Exactly. And because not all mortgage people are actually doing the renovation loan, the people don't even know to ask, and they don't offer it because a lot of the other thing that we found in doing this, and one of the other things and reasons why we started this, is because we have also had friends who have, capped out at their highest price point that they qualify for at a house and then couldn't sell it. And it ended up being in that dichotomy of having to pay 2 mortgages, or because they capped out so high, they can't rent it for what they're actually paying in mortgage. So they're actually losing as well. So, so I think people try to take advantage of the VA system to all its benefits, and that you can qualify for higher because you don't have to have those down payments, but nobody's asking about the renovation loan because they don't realize that you can go in and actually get yourself a custom house the way you want it and make it absolutely beautiful, and the VA can still pay for it.
Yeah. And people hear about how the VA loan is not good to purchase with in hot markets because it doesn't cover repairs and it doesn't do this and it doesn't do that. And the renovation loan answers all of those questions.
Absolutely.
But nobody knows it exists, so they go with an FHA 203K. And
exactly.
And the 203K is fine if you don't have the VA loan, but the renovation loan blows it out of the water. In every way. Yeah, I mean it's crazy because the actual loan doesn't have a cap. Like you said, your guy does 50,000, but like per the Department of Veteran Affairs, like there's no limit. You can do $600,000 worth of repairs as long as the value of the property is more than the money.
And that's the key, is like, because it ends up being wrapped up into your VA mortgage as a whole, as one whole payment, they coincide because there are limitations on what the VA is going to give you based on value and return. So they reflect each other. So it's a delicate balance, but you're right, there is no actual cap. So as long as you're finding the property that you can renovate for that much money, you're golden. And those properties are everywhere. It's just a matter of as much work you want to put into it, or B, finding people like us who do it for you.
Yeah. All right. So somebody is moving, maybe not necessarily to brag, but what are some pointers that you would give to someone who's PCSing and looking to take advantage of some of these opportunities?
Yes, absolutely. So the first thing, don't be afraid of it. I think a lot of people hear the word flipping and they get very nervous. We've gotten that a lot. Our people that are coming down here, it's usually one spouse is completely on board and that's how they found us. And the other spouse is like, I don't know, this makes me really nervous. And then they see the numbers, and numbers usually win them over. But, so don't be afraid. Yes, flipping is its own animal and its own beast, but it's actually not as hard as you think. The other thing is make sure that you find a good realtor first. And the first thing you do when you talk to that realtor is let them know your plans. So let them know that you're looking for a house with equity that can be flipped, because most of the time you go in finding a realtor and they're just looking for the average house. They're looking for your normal house. They're going to sell you on this, this, and this, and this. But finding a realtor that is comfortable with getting you a house with equity is going to be key. The second thing is already knowing a mortgage person who's going to help you with the VA renovation loan. And the reason I emphasize that part is because that's what most military families are going to end up using, because the system is so easy. 98% of the people that we work with outside the investor piece, but just the regular piece, they are using the VA loan. So find a mortgage person who is very comfortable in the VA loan piece. And automatically ask them about the VA renovation loan. If they don't know what it is, go to the next mortgage person. And then C, you don't have to, and here's the thing, and this is the biggest hiccup a lot of people have, and I understand it. I wish I didn't understand it, but I do understand it, is people are afraid to find contractors because contractors are really bad. That's the biggest thing. You don't want to get into a house. You don't want to get this project and realize that your contractor has left you high and dry, or your contractor is bad. You can actually specifically research renovation contractors, or contractors that are good in renovation, or flipping companies, flipping contractors, because there are contractors out there who actually advertise their services for flips, because flips are a whole different ballgame than coming in and doing a piecemeal something, or a piecemeal something, or even building a house from scratch. Is very, very different. And then I think even before all of that, reach out to someone with experience who can help guide you. So one of the things that we did, because we knew that our idea is that Live and Flip would grow beyond Bragg, and it has actually started to do so, because we realized that the military people PCS all the time, anywhere from 2 to 5 years. So why not repeat this? So there are resources out there. So we actually started a Flipping 101 course to help military families that aren't necessarily here in Bragg, but answer all their questions. So like we do one-on-one coaching where we help them understand the market. We help them what to look for. If we have our realtor connections, we connect them. But if not, then they bring their realtor to us. And basically it's this big group talk throughout the whole time where we're saying, hey, these are the pros and cons of maybe this particular property or that particular property. And then we help them find and source materials, because that's the other big piece about your flip, is making sure that you're sourcing materials at a good price, because that's where it gets really expensive. So there are people in the military who are doing this and who are really, really, really good at doing this. This isn't something new. The people have been perfecting this for decades, and they're out there. So I 100% find those people as a resource, and they don't have to be your next door neighbor. They can actually be across the country and still help you.
Yeah. And I would agree with a lot of what you said. Well, most of what you said. I definitely think flipping is, I would like to say it's overly convoluted, like people just make it seem worse than it is. But so the flip I'm doing right now is going terrible, but it's because of the second or the third person you mentioned, that contractor. And so I've got some issues there that I'm trying to work out. I'm going to end up probably, if he can't finish it within the month, I'm going to go and just fire him and find another one. But that's the hardest piece. I had a good one. He was too busy. So I went with another guy. I should have just waited for the first guy. But flipping itself, yeah, I'm in San Diego. That house is in Missouri. I've seen it twice. It is what it is. The actual process, we're 80% of the way done. We just had some issues come up, but nothing house related, just people related. And the house is great. Oh, something I wanted to mention. I know you guys advertise the Live and Flip, but people don't necessarily have to sell right when they move, because if they have enough equity, they might be able to rent it or whatever. But can you touch on the benefit as far as like capital gains and stuff? Because I know people get afraid of that with flipping, but there's a definite
For
benefit
sure.
to live-in piece.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So and there's a couple different ways to do it. And I should also, probably going back to, if I had advice, the biggest thing is be patient. So with our target audience, again, outside of the actual investor piece and just, the churn and burn flips that we do here in Fayetteville, that's very different than the ones where the military family is PCSing. Like, be patient. You're literally living in that house for anywhere from 2 to 3 years. It's great if you use the renovation loan and you get it all done at once. But if you have to piecemeal it because you don't even want to add the renovation loans to it, you can't. Like, be patient. It's a process. The whole point is to use this house to your benefit, to level you up in life. It doesn't have to be an immediate effect. But back to the taxes. So there's a couple different ways to do it. And like you had mentioned, you don't necessarily have to sell the house. I mean, if you have the right amount of equity, and that's what we used honestly to spur our personal flips when we started this for our own personal sake. We actually used the equity in our foreclosure. That's one of the main reasons we got it, because we came in at 60,000 under. We used that to spur the capital that we needed to start doing our flips. So we actually took a HELOC, which is a home equity line of credit, out on the house, and we used that in conjunction with flippers loans, and that's how we started everything. So no, you don't have to automatically sell. There are pluses and minuses. You can hold it as rent. The only thing that I would be careful about on the rent piece is and you'll see this a lot of people who do the BRRR method, where they're buying and holding so that they can do a rent, is that be careful when you choose a flip to do a rent, to make sure that if that's the whole purpose of what you're doing, the renovations that you make are going to be renter worthy renovations, because renter type renovations are very different than renovating a house to sell the house. So it cost wise it's different, material wise it's different, because then at some point you're looking more for longevity of material, and you're going slightly cheaper because you know that over time the material is going to be damaged, etc. And then the more you invest in a house when you're flipping it, you don't want to get so much in the debt that your long-term return for rental is pushed so far out. So those are two different methods, and they can absolutely be achieved. You just have to know that, I think, from the get-go when you're doing your flip.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because you want to do, you're not going to put a crystal chandelier in a house that you're giving to tenants. You're going to put a can light.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
And then there's one other benefit that I just wanted to touch on for those of you who do decide to hold it long term. People often overlook this, but so when you flip a house, you pay capital gains tax, which is whatever. But if you lived in the house for 2 years out of the 5, you don't have to pay capital gains tax. However, there's an exemption in there for service members. So if you lived in the house for a total of 2 years cumulatively out of 15, you don't have to pay capital gains tax on that home. So if you buy a house, you flip it, and you do a live-in flip in Fort Bragg, you realize the numbers will work for you to rent it, you can move out on military orders. So that's the key. You got to be on orders. Like if you get out of the military, the 15 years doesn't apply. But you could PCS around the world, and as long as you sell it within 15 years of with you having lived in it for 2 of the last 15 years, then you're good. You won't pay any taxes on that. So that's really cool too.
Yeah, which basically fits the entire model of if the only thing you do as a military person is use your houses when you PCS, then you're good under that.
Pretty deep into your process already, so I'm trying to figure out what other questions I got. I guess I could roll into some of these. Like if a youngster, I say E1, E2, but at this point, I think it'd probably be better to talk like a young married couple was to hit you up asking for advice. Like, what do you think would be the first thing you'd want to tell them?
For sure. Well, and it's funny that you say that, because coming in, I actually had thought that our target audience was going to be married couples or those with families, but we have two guys that we're working with now who are just single officers. They're just single, maybe 23, 24. They don't have family, they're not married, but they're already ahead of the game in the real estate part. And they're like, hey, I hear that I can make money by purchasing a house and flipping it. Is this what I can do? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And the benefits for them is because they don't have a family, etc. We don't have to worry about, school zones, etc. It really is just a numbers game for them, which is really, it gives a little bit more freedom to work with, which is really nice. But having said that, my biggest advice for anyone who would come to us and say, hey, where do I start? What do I do? Literally start exactly like you start anywhere else when you move to a post. Like, let's look for a house. Let's find the house with the equity. What are your must-haves? And by this, I mean like your actual must-haves and then your wants, because a lot of your wants you might not get right away, but we can create your wants. Like, we actually at this point get to customize your wants and make your wants into this beautiful house. So we really have to get to the nitty-gritty of like, okay, what can you absolutely live without in purchasing the home, because you can't see it, because again, these are flips. These are Bragg and there's a lot of these markets around military post in particular, but Bragg is a hot spot for flipping because everything around Bragg was built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s when, Bragg was built up. And then the only thing you had new builds like a little bit further out. But that just means that all the houses right around Bragg are built during that time, and they're just ready to turn and burn for flips. So like you have to go in with an open mindset, but it always comes down to numbers. Yeah, I will never, it's the funniest thing because it's usually the wife that says, hey, I found you guys. They watch HGTV and they're like, oh my gosh, I saw your houses. These are beautiful. Can we do that? And the husband is, and this is stereotypical, but this is more often than not. And the husband will be like, well, I don't know about this. I don't want to get into the flipping. That's messy. Is this actually going to work? And sure enough, we show the numbers and they're like, are these like actual real numbers? I'm like, yeah, no, these are the numbers for this particular house. You're going to walk away with 5 figures. And that point, they're like, oh, okay, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. That's, I guess that's probably true. The guy, well, it's probably because the guy in his head is like, damn it, I'm going to have to swing a hammer. Like when they see flip, it's always like, so much work, but like, you don't have to do the work. You can,
no,
you don't have to. And it could be fun. Like, I'm torn because when we move back to Missouri, we're going to buy a, triplex, fourplex, whatever, and do a live-in flip for a year, just because I need to maximize my VA loan before I move back into my primary residence long-term.
Yeah.
And I thought about doing the renovation loan, but then there's a part of me that thinks it'd be fun to just do it all myself and get pissed with the wife and the kids and that'd be fun. So
and then we use, because we actually payroll our own contractors, so we have our own team, and I do all the design. We've got the software, we source all the materials, project management, and that eases a lot of the concerns, because at that point it's really just hands off. But we have more than once, we usually have them come in on demo day, because a lot of times they're like, well, can we help with demo? And we're like, you could totally help with demo. That's the best. They love swinging a hammer or learning how to do a drill and stuff like that. So it's pretty fun when they're on site on those days.
Yeah, that's fun for sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's nothing like smashing a wall with a sledge. So
no,
you can't have a bad day doing that. So,
and I'll never forget, there was one. So we were taking out a complete wall. Like my big thing is I knock down walls. The contractors, they know, they'll make fun of me, and they're always like, so that wall's going, that wall's going, that wall's going. And I'm like, actually, yeah, all of them are going to go down. But he didn't want to mess up anything because he was brand new, and he didn't want, so he was like meticulously taking down the drywall. And I come in and I'm literally like banging it out, hammering, sledgehammering, taking everything. And he looks at me and he's like, oh, so that's how it's done. I'm like, oh yeah, this is like demo. Go ahead and rip that crap out. And sure enough, it was gone in like 30 minutes.
Yeah, as long as it's not getting reused, or it's not if it's load bearing, maybe you don't want to be swinging it at, maybe you want to watch out for part of it. But as long as that wall is free and clear, have fun.
Yeah. So it's always fun. It's a good time. And then I like the after. My favorite part is, because each family is different. So there's the regular flips, but then there's when we do it for a family, because you're still living in this house. Every family wants to have a house that's unique to them. It's their personal house that they have to live in. So I truly believe that houses tell a story. I mean, they've been here for decades and they want to tell a story, and that families have a story that they want to tell. And then when you combine a house and a family together, it just makes this beautiful actual home. So for the clients that actually come down here and we renovate the house for them to live in, we move their stuff in, we set everything up, and we actually reveal the house to them, and seeing their after and seeing that this is the house that they have, there's this sense of pride, because they did it. It's their loan, it's their house, but there's also this sense of, I can't believe this is our house. Like, we actually get to live in this. And then it's just icing on the cake at that point that they make money. They just really like the house.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, even if you broke even, but you got to live in the house of your dreams, like that wouldn't be too bad. And the nice thing is, and people don't talk about this, but like with the VA renovation loan, and this is one of the reasons it's so much better than the FHA, you can do those things that are like dream worthy. Like you can do structure, you
Yes.
can put a pool in. Like people
Yep.
don't realize you can go crazy as long as it
Yep.
fits the budget.
100%. So it's wives are getting their dream kitchens. We're getting extra rooms. We're getting floors and things that you don't normally find because each space is slightly different, but they have their own style. So like one of the houses that we just did, that was a flip here, we got to do straight out industrial, which you don't find here. So,
Cool.
like it's had the open shelves, industrial piping, and then the black cabinets and all that. And it was such a big hit because people were like, oh my gosh, this isn't something that's here. But I'm like, yeah, it's everywhere else. So you really get to create a house that you love and that your family's going to love and then make money from. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, yeah, that's a definite benefit for sure. And I mean, and we're talking about numbers here, but we're not even factoring in that you're paying the principal down while you live there. And I mean, all the other normal benefits that come
exactly. Yep.
into place. So, you might say, yeah, you make 15,000, but okay, well, yeah, but you're also saving $500 a month by paying it off on principal instead of throwing it into a rent or whatever. So.
Yep. And that's usually the numbers, and that's $15,000, not including any type of appreciation of the market as well, because we're just doing the numbers at this point. So most of the time it's even more.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. Well, I would ask you what makes your method unique, but I think we've kind of covered that pretty. Your entire strategy is fairly unique. What's a good resource, book, course, website, or whatever that you would recommend to somebody looking to get started in real estate?
Yeah, I actually really like Bigger Pockets. They have a whole Facebook group. They have a whole podcast. It can be a little overwhelming at first for someone who's brand new, because the Bigger Pockets has to deal with anybody who's doing real estate, whether it's flipping, whether it's rentals, whether it's multifamilies, all that stuff. But the thing is, the more you expose yourself to these terms and that information, and you see all the stuff that's going in, the more you get familiar with it. So I think anybody who's looking just for basic knowledge of real estate investing, I love Bigger Pockets. But if you're looking, just to simplify with just starting, if you're your average military family who this has kind of caught your attention, but you don't quite know if you just want to delve in or not, just reach out to us. Because whatever questions you may have, no matter where you are in the country, no matter what market you're in, just reach out to us and ask. Because we'll answer all your questions, from whether or not you should be fearful, whether or not you should take the risk, to how to source things for cheap based on pallet auctions. So, I mean, like one of our last houses, we paid $300. Just reach out to us and ask. Because we'll answer all your questions, from whether or not you should be fearful, whether or not you should take the risk, to how to source things for cheap based on pallet auctions. So, I mean, like one of our last houses, we paid $300 for the entire tile in the entire house. So there are all these ways, and the military community is a wonderful and unique family community, and you're not alone on this flipping, because I guarantee you, if we don't know someone here, we know someone who knows someone where you're at, that's doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the pallet auction. So I spent an arm and a leg, but I just saved $800 on my appliances by buying over Black Friday, even though they won't be ready to install for another 6 weeks. But
good for you. That's $800.
So I set the install date through. It was it Home Depot, this one? Yeah, so it was Home Depot. And I set it for like January 15th. They're like, yeah, just call if it changes. Okay, I'll figure it out. But yeah, like $1,600, $1,700 for all 4 appliances. Like, hey, whatever. They're all brand new. They're all stainless.
Yeah,
and they're not like the bottom of the bottom line. Like, they're decent appliances. So
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's always a way. And then, pallet auctions are awesome. If your contractor's got materials left over from some other job, I had a contractor do all the fascia on my 10 unit. He already had it all, so I didn't even pay for materials.
See, that's awesome.
A little labor bonus and called it a day.
Yeah, that's awesome. You don't have to, and that's where people, I harp about budget. Oh, I harp about budget. That is the key. If If there is no option to go over budget for us, so it forces you to be creative. But there are ways out there. There are ways to do it. You don't have to. We do entire houses here for 30,000. Like, you don't have to go, and you'll see what I call like I hate to say this, but what I call a bad flip is usually when I see a flip, the house that's been flipped and it comes to market, and I look at the area that it's in, and I look at the stuff that was used. And one, visually, it's kind of all piecemeal. Like, they either did one or two things. They found all this random stuff for super cheap, and none of it, matches. The house isn't telling the story. It's just, you can tell that, oh, it's probably better than what it was. And I consider those bad flips, because what happens is the quality of what you're putting on the market is not as nice as, say, the quality as if the house was looked at as a whole. Or you see that they've done something in a certain area, and the type of things that they're putting in that house isn't going to get the same return for that area. So for us as investors, and that's something that we are really big in, especially in this area, because Bragg has it's known as Fayette Nom. If you've grown up in the military at any point in time, or you've been around the military, Bragg has a certain nickname. And part of what we do here is, there's no reason why families who are forced to come down here should have a subpar housing market. So our flips are really they're not lipstick flips. We intentionally do it so that we're actually raising the market value of all the houses here as Bragg as a whole. So when you're going into the flips, also think about what you're contributing to the market, because what you contribute to the market is also what you get back. Don't piecemeal it. Make it a good flip, but you can make a good flip and still save money. You don't have to go out and do waste thousands of dollars.
Absolutely. And yeah, I agree. There's definitely some people who either overdo or underdo, or, like you said, mismatch, or if every house in the neighborhood has granite countertops and you put linoleum in, or vice versa, it might hurt you,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that's why knowing your market is definitely important.
Mm-hmm.
Before we wrap this up, is there anything you'd like to add? Any parting advice or big ideas that we didn't talk about?
Don't be afraid. I mean, I guess I've already said this before, but this is for your average, and again, different than people who are already interested in doing this, because there are a lot of military people who are already doing this, or who are doing the BRR method. But if you are your average military family, you are going to PCS anywhere from 7 to 10 times in your entire career. That's just, so why not make that your biggest source of revenue? There's no reason not to. Don't be afraid to do it. Do something that actually can be a financial hardship for you, and flip it and turn it around to be the biggest step up and leveling up in your economic future, because that's exactly what this is.
I like it. Awesome. So where can people get a hold of you guys?
Yes, so Facebook, Live and Flip, LIVEINFLIP. We've got an Instagram that's also Live and Flip, and you can always check out our personal Facebook. So mine is Jenny Villalobos _Live and Flip. But again, if you just search LIVEINFLIP, you'll find our Facebook and our Instagram, and you can message us through that.
Right on. Well, Jenny and Chris, thanks for joining us today.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Yeah, this was fun. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to another episode about my journey from military to millionaire. If you liked it, be sure to visit FromMilitaryToMillionaire.com/podcast to subscribe to future podcasts. While you're there, we'd love for you to rate the show, give us a review on iTunes. Now get out there and take action.